internet, and welcome to another wrap-up video. I can't believe June is already over. I can't believe that I actually read 12 books last month. So a lot of these books that I've been reading is in part because I have joined a book club which is geared at teachers reading young adult books because they want to be able to better connect with their students. How cool is that? So that's something that I'm a part of, and I can't wait to share my list with you guys. First up, I read If You Could Be Mine by Sarah Farazan. This was her debut novel, came out a few years ago, and it's about a young girl who is a lesbian in Iran, and while that is illegal, being a transgendered person is not. So in an attempt to try to keep her relationship with the girl that she's in love with, she's considering giving up herself and becoming a man. This was a really very thought-provoking given the situation, and that this was a contemporary piece. Next was I'll Give You the Sun by Jandy Nelson. This was the story about two twins, Jude and Noah, and this brother and sister pair have done everything together, but this story is told in a really interesting way in that 13-year-old Noah is telling every other chapter, and 16-year-old Jude is telling her parts of the story too. So you have two different perspectives from two different time periods, and you get the story in a very different sort of fashion. Getting my classics on, I finally read Dubliners by James Joyce. Ever since going to Ireland, I've really wanted to connect more with my Irish heritage, and who better than with Dublin's most famous writer. This was a collection of short stories. Some I thought were wonderful, some I thought went way over my head, but I'm glad that I read it anyway. Getting in touch with another culture, I read A Bollywood Affair by Sonali Dev. This follows the tale of a girl who was a child bride and her husband who was told that a divorce had happened, only that wasn't true. Now that they're all grown up and his wife is about to have a baby, he sends his brother to find this woman in Michigan who assumes they're still married to try to get a divorce. For real. It's all very complicated sounding, but it was actually a very light, thought-provoking, and heartfelt story. I happened to read two books back-to-back that both take place in 1993 and 1994 and are heavily influenced by Kurt Cobain and Nirvana. First was About a Boy by Nick Hornby, about a man who is really not sure how to be a grown-up, not that he even wants to be, and a boy that comes into his life who is wise beyond his years and has had to grow up far faster than he should have had to. Next was The Carnival at Bray by Jessie Ann Foley, and this was the story of a girl who moves to a small town outside of Dublin, Ireland for her junior year of high school, is missing her friends, is missing her home, and more than anything, is missing her uncle, a rock star who has introduced her to the world of punk, and she's desperate to find a place in this world without him. Both stories were a bit too quick in their pacing for my personal taste, but I liked what they were doing, and I finally got around to listening to Smells Like Teen Spirit. Getting into some non-fiction and educational style books, I read Creative Schools by Sir Ken Robinson. This name may be familiar from his TED Talk that he gave a couple years ago that blew up the internet. I was a huge fan. This is the second book of his I've read, and it's talking about why we need to encourage creativity in schools, how is it possible, how is it being done, and what will happen to us if we don't. I'm a huge proponent of the arts in schools. I don't know who I would be without them, and he touches on some of that in this book. Plus, his writing style is very, very accessible, even if you're not an education type person. It's very interesting what he has to say. I followed that up with Emmy and Oliver by Robin Benway. I was lucky enough to receive this arc from the author, and this is the story about Oliver, who was kidnapped by his father when he was 7 years old, and Emmy, who was his best friend at the time. They lived next door to each other, and their worlds both completely changed when this event happened. But 10 years later, Oliver is found, he comes home, and their worlds change all over again. This was a very sweet contemporary. If you're a fan of Sarah Dessen's writing, I'm pretty sure you're going to love this, and it's in stores now. Back on the nonfiction front, I read The Terrorist's Son by Zach Ibrahim. His father was behind the 1993 World Trade Center bombings, even though he was in prison at the time, but he was in prison because he shot and killed the leader of the Jewish Defense League. It's an impossible situation to imagine, and to see what this man's upbringing was like with this sort of fanaticism and how he never felt a pull toward that idea of hate and instead has followed a life really about acceptance and openness and love. It's very impressive to see the journey that this man has been on. And the final book that I read with my eyeballs this month was Being Henry David by Cal Armistead. This was the story about a boy who wakes up in Penn Station and has no idea who he is, how he got there, and his only clue to who he could possibly be is a copy of Walden in his pocket by Henry David Thoreau. Since he doesn't remember his name, he adopts Henry David's and ends up going on a journey around New England to sort of figure things out and find out what is it that his brain doesn't want him to remember. This book wasn't my particular cup of tea, however, it did reignite a desire to reread Walden, which is something I haven't done since high school. And finally, I'm getting way more into audiobooks, and I listened to 2 this month. First up was Alice Bliss by Laura Harrington, the story of a girl and her family on the home front while her father is in the National Guard and is sent to Iraq. This was a completely emotional story. I was listening to it in the car, which at times I had to stop listening to it while I was driving. It was an engaging, wonderful, agonizing adolescent tale. And on a happier note, I listened to Is Everyone Hanging Out Without Me and Other Concerns by Mindy Kaling. This was actually a reread for me since I had read the book in print a couple years ago, but on a road trip by myself, Mindy narrating this first memoir of hers was completely entertaining and only has me more excited for her upcoming book that's going to be out in stores this fall. So those are the 12 books that I read in June. I'm juggling a few titles right now. I'm rereading Paper Towns by John Green in anticipation of the upcoming movie. I am re-listening to Scarlet by Marissa Meyer as a reread. I am also reading an arc of the novel Hello by Lisa Weimer. I have to confess, Lisa is a friend of mine. She is an absolutely wonderful human being, so shameless plug for her and her book. So far, I am about 3/4 of the way. No, almost done. So I'm going to be finishing this up. It is a wonderful tale. She ties together 5 narrators' points of view in this small town in Wisconsin and is really great at showing the interconnectedness of people's lives. So Lisa, I am loving your book. Guys, put this on your to-reads list. It's coming out this fall. So that's what I'm reading right now. If you guys have any comments or suggestions, please tell me down in comments. All of my usual links are down below. Comments are always welcome. And that's it from me for now. Take care. Bye!